Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Russian President Vladimir Putin says any deal to resolve the conflict in Ukraine must not compromise Moscow's security, speaking at a meeting with the Slovakian Prime Minister in China. Israel begins mobilizing tens of thousands of reservists as part of its plan to widen its offensive in Gaza City, which has sparked opposition domestically and condemnation abroad. Rain fury continues across northern India, leaving states to grapple with submerged roads, flood warnings, and washed away houses, as deaths and displacement mount in many areas. The Japanese ruling party's Secretary General, who is a close aide to Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, says he could resign, a move that could affect Ishiba's fate as he resists calls to quit after July's election loss that cost the ruling coalition its majority. And Australia says it will force tech giants to stop online tools from being used to create AI-generated nude images or enable undetected stalking. This is the latest in a series of sweeping legal reforms to curb online harm. Hello and welcome. Let's start with Sudan. A tragedy has hit the war-torn country. A massive landslide in western Darfur region has wiped out an entire village and killed over 1,000 people, reportedly leaving only one survivor. The disaster struck on Sunday. It was triggered by days of heavy rain, which has now reduced the village of Tarasin in the Jebel Marra area to ruins. The Sudan Liberation Movement, the SLM, shared the details of the landslide in a statement, calling it massive and devastating. Photos shared by the rebel group show huge sections of the mountainside collapsed, burying the village under the thick mud, uprooted trees, and shattered beams. The group has appealed for international aid to recover bodies still buried under debris. The SLM controls parts of the Jebel Marra Range. It is a rugged volcanic range stretching about 160 kilometers southwest of North Darfur's Besigye capital of El Fasher. The RSF is seeking to capture this city after losing much of central Sudan, including Khartoum, earlier this year. Now, hundreds of thousands of people fleeing clashes between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary RSF have sought shelter in the Mara Mountains. The mountainous region is prone to landslides, particularly during the rainy season, which peaks in August. Back in 2018, a landslide in nearby Tukuli killed at least 20 people. Now, because of the ongoing war, much of Darfur, including the area where the landslide occurred, remains largely inaccessible to international aid organizations. Heavy rains often damage roads, further complicating humanitarian efforts in Darfur. This where the infrastructure is more or less non-existent. Parts of Darfur are grappling with famine triggered by the ongoing war, which has now entered its third year. The fighting has killed tens of thousands so far. According to the UN, about 10 million people are currently displaced within Sudan, and an additional 4 million have fled to neighboring countries. Factions of the SLM, which controls the area where the landslide occurred, have pledged to fight alongside the Sudanese military against the RSF, which has now installed a parallel government in Sudan. Sudan is facing one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. Intense fighting has already hindered the flow of international aid, and disasters such as these make things far worse for civilians. And shifting focus to Nigeria, in a major win for the Tinubu government, a Nigerian separatist leader has been sentenced to 6 years in prison in Finland. A Finnish court has handed down a 6-year jail term to the Nigerian separatist Simon Ekpa. Now, he was convicted on terrorism-related charges for promoting independence of Nigeria's Biafra region through illegal means. The court found him guilty of supplying armed groups with weapons and explosives and inciting others to commit crimes. Ekpa allegedly used his significant social media following to incite violence in southeastern Nigeria, directly linking his campaigns to unrest. The court established that he supplied weapons, explosives and ammunition to armed groups in the region through an international network of contacts. He was also convicted of aggravated tax fraud. The offences took place in the Finnish city of Lahti between 2021 and 2024. Now, Ekpa has denied the charges. He claims he was only disseminating information about events in the region. Simon Ekpa is a 40-year-old dual Finnish-Nigerian national. He is a former athlete turned lawyer and activist. He moved to Finland in 2007, gained citizenship, completed military service, and served as a reservist. In 2022, he announced the activation of the Biafra government in exile, and in 2023 declared himself Prime Minister of the Biafra Republic government in exile. He was later arrested in Finland on terrorism-related charges after authorities investigated his role in enforcing the sit-at-home orders that disrupted life in southeast Nigeria. He had earlier been associated with a separatist organization called the IPOB, but later claimed to lead his own faction in exile. Now, the Biafra region refers to southeastern part of Nigeria. It is predominantly inhabited by the Igbo ethnic group. It attempted to secede as the Republic of Biafra between 1967 and 1970, triggering the Nigerian Civil War. Biafra officially declared its independence in 1967. The federal government rejected the succession, and a brutal 3-year war followed. In 1970, Biafran forces were defeated and the region was reabsorbed into Nigeria. Now, since the war, many in the Igbo community have felt politically and economically marginalized. Figures like Simon Ekpa have radicalized parts of the separatist movement from abroad. Nigeria had called for Ekpa's extradition, insisting that he should face justice at home. Finnish authorities, however, have prosecuted him locally under their anti-terrorism laws. Nigeria has welcomed the verdict as a major step in the global fight against extremism and praised the Finnish judiciary for strengthening bilateral cooperation. Officials have hinted that repatriation could be requested once Ekpa serves his term. Meanwhile, despite the court decision, Ekpa can still appeal to a higher court. The Finnish case has been closely watched, especially in Africa, as it sets a legal precedent for holding diaspora agitators accountable for actions that influence security and violence in their home countries. And moving on, let's turn our attention to Uganda, where President Museveni's top rival, Kizza Besigye, has boycotted his long-delayed treason trial. Now, the trial was supposed to begin on Monday, but Besigye and his co-accused, Obaid Lutale, reportedly refused to appear in court, accusing the judge of bias. Besigye and his ally Lutale have vowed not to appear before Judge Emmanuel Baguma until another judge is appointed. Now, he is the same judge who refused to grant bail to Besigye last month. Besigye has been in jail since November of last year, after he was dramatically abducted in Kenya and returned to Uganda, where he faces the death penalty for treason. He has been accused of plotting to topple Museveni's government. Now, upon his forced return to Uganda, Besigye's case was initially tried as a court-martial, but later moved to a civilian court, after the Supreme Court ruled it was unconstitutional to try civilians in military courts. However, Museveni later signed a new law in June, reinstating military trials for civilians under exceptional circumstances. The legal limit for detention without trial in Uganda is 6 months, but the judge last month ruled that the clock only started when Besigye was remanded in the civilian court in February, rather than the moment that he was jailed in November last year. So, despite being in jail for over 9 months, Besigye fell short by 12 days to meet the requirements to secure bail. In June, Besigye's wife and UN AIDS Executive Director Winnie Byanyima said that he was being detained for political reasons under inhumane conditions. Rights groups have also slammed Besigye's abduction and trial as Museveni's crackdown on opposition ahead of elections in January of next year. Museveni, who has been in power for nearly 40 years, is seeking another term in the upcoming elections. A former ally and personal physician of Museveni, Besigye had stood against Museveni in 4 elections and has lost all of them. But he rejected the results, alleging fraud and voter intimidation. Now, Besigye did not contest the 2021 elections, and it is not clear if he wants to run again. Besigye has previously accused Ugandan authorities of political persecution. His trial is being closely watched by the whole country. It remains to be seen how Besigye's trial will affect President Museveni's re-election bid in the upcoming elections. Africa, rich in critical resources, is fast becoming the Gulf's next big investment destination. After Saudi Arabia and the UAE, now Qatar has stepped in with one of the biggest investment announcements yet. Qatar has unveiled a massive $103 billion investment plan across 6 African countries. The package signals how Africa is becoming a critical arena in global competition for minerals and markets. Now, the Democratic Republic of Congo will receive the largest share, $21 billion. It will be spread across mining, hydrocarbons, agriculture, and 12 other sectors. Mozambique is set to receive $20 billion in investments, mainly targeting agriculture and energy. Zambia and Zimbabwe get $19 billion each, invested in oil, gas, and 11 additional sectors. And Botswana and Burundi will receive $12 billion each, with Botswana's package covering infrastructure, diamond processing, tourism, cybersecurity, and defense. While Burundi's deal centers on energy, farming, and infrastructure. Now, for years, African economies have mainly sold their resources like diamonds, cobalt, copper, lithium in raw form. Without local processing, they miss out on jobs and profits that come from the finishing of turning those resources into finished products. Now, Qatar says that its investments will help change that by funding processing plants, supporting diversification beyond single exports, and backing new projects in critical minerals, which are key ingredients for electric vehicles and renewable energy. The push is a part of a wider wave of Gulf capital flowing into Africa. As per reports, the GCC investments in African energy and minerals hit $2.2 billion in just the first half of 2025. Now, this comes as African states seek alternative partners amid growing U.S. protectionism under President Donald Trump's second term. Qatar is also expanding its diplomatic footprint, opening new embassies, hosting African leaders in Doha, and positioning itself as a neutral mediator. Its role in the DRC-Rwanda peace talks this year has raised its profile as a conflict mediator in the conflict. Qatar's strategy puts it in direct competition with China, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. Now, China dominates through mega infrastructure and resource deals driven by the Belt and Road Initiative. The UAE leads in ports, mining, and security. Saudi Arabia uses oil wealth and religious ties, along with food security and peace initiatives. From bases in Somalia to Africa routes by Turkish airlines, Turkey combines military presence, trade, and cultural diplomacy. Qatar, for now, is focused on energy, finance, and mediation, boosting its profile through capital and conflict resolution. Africa's resources have long been courted by global powers, but with Gulf money pouring in, the battle for influence is entering a new era, one where Qatar now wants a seat at the table. And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.